The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Wade Michael Page, an Army veteran, entered an Oak Creek, Wisconsin Sikh temple yesterday and shot 6 people dead, ended up dying himself after being shot. An incredibly tragic situation, especially coming so shortly after the horrible, horrible situation, Lewis, that took place at the theater in Aurora, Colorado, of course, where many, many more people, of course, died and were injured. The FBI is investigating this as a domestic terrorism type incident. It's also being considered whether it's a hate crime. What came to mind to me right away when I heard about this is the common misperception that Sikhs are Muslims. And of course, implicit in that Muslims are evil. That Muslims are evil and deserve to be shot. And that is actually one of the main storylines that now is developing. It's still being investigated, and we'll certainly know more about that at some point. But Lewis, this is something that I've heard everybody from college professors to, just such a widely known theory. The idea that because the Sikh has a long beard and a turban, they are often misperceived as Muslims, even though they actually have nothing to do with Muslims.
Hard to imagine that for some reason this man had a serious problem with Sikhs. Very hard to imagine.
It is, right. If we take it at face value and say, no. He knows the distinction between Sikhs and Muslims. It's just the Sikhs that he really had a problem with. That's, of course, hard to imagine. Not because Muslims are evil, but because based on the portrayal of Muslims in the media, many people have gotten the idea that Muslims are dangerous and evil.
Right.
Now, according to sources in the Army, Page enlisted in April of 1992 and was given a less than honorable discharge in October of 1998. He served at Fort Bliss, Texas in the Psychological Operations Unit in 1994. That's concerning to me, that somebody who is capable of carrying out such a heinous serial mass crime like this was at some point working in anything called psychological operations as anything other than a patient is concerning to me.
Yes, very strange.
Of course, at the time, quite a long time ago, 1994, things may have been very different with him back then.
Clearly.
40 years old, he was killed outside the temple in a shootout with police officers after the rampage, which of course left the congregants of the Sikh temple that were still alive hiding anywhere that they could, including closets and all over the place. Satpal Kalika said she was in the front room when Wade walked in. She said that he was a 6-foot-tall, bald white man. Worshippers said they had never seen him before at the temple, and that it seemed like he had a purpose and knew where he was going. That's a quote from Satpal Kalika. I'm wondering whether, as we move forward here, the Sikh temple shooting will be covered in the news the same way as the Colorado movie shooting was. I'm guessing there will be differences, in part because this is now almost starting to build a trend, because it came so shortly thereafter. So it may not be reasonable to expect identical coverage, but we have to consider what difference there will be comparing something that took place at a non-Christian religious place versus what took place at a movie theater.
Yeah, I haven't seen, partially my fault because I haven't been paying that close attention. I haven't seen much coverage of this story yet. But yeah, who knows? I mean, is Fox News going to call this what are they going to call it?
That's the question, really.
Yeah.
What will Fox News and right-wing media call this? And whatever we see them call it, we then have to compare if this was a Christian church and the shooter, maybe he was a white atheist, maybe he was another religion, maybe he was Muslim, he or she, even though realistically most of these shooters are male. How would Fox News be covering it differently, right? Is there a war on Christians? If that takes place, would we now say that there is a war on Sikhs or a real significant issue with Sikhs being misperceived as Muslims? What will the Fox News coverage be? Not so much in the breaking news moments, which we've already observed, but once we start getting into the commentary shows and the discussion shows and the analysis shows, what will it be? I don't actually know the answer. What would you expect, Natan?
Well, it remains to be seen, but I guess our expectation would be that it wouldn't be covered the same way, and that it wouldn't be put into the context of a war on Sikhs or Muslims if the idea is that the gunman mistakenly thought that these were Muslims. We're going to see the idea of a lone psycho because he's, a white Christian, as you said.
Typically, Lewis, as we know, whenever it is domestic not necessarily right-wing terrorism, but domestic terrorism not perpetrated by minorities. Sometimes they're Christians, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're right-wingers, sometimes they're not. It is always
The lone wolf.
a lone gunman acting completely separately from any influence from any groups, media, society, culture, or context that may exist in this country.
Lone wolf, isolated incident, just a lunatic.
So we'll continue covering that. Casual pepper spray cop Lieutenant John Pike has lost his job. He was apparently a little too casual with that pepper spray, Lewis. 9 months and $76,000 of paid administrative leave later, UC Davis officer Lieutenant John Pike, who of course is famous for what, Lewis? Casually pepper spraying people at UC Davis who were very calmly and quietly protesting as part of the Occupy movement. He has now been fired, okay? Let's take a look, if you don't remember, for our television audience, at that video of the casual pepper spraying incident to refresh people's memory, because it has been a little while, Lewis. People may have forgotten the casual nature of that pepper spray usage. And there he goes, very casual, almost like you were misting people with water on a hot day, just very, very casually shaking the thing out, and there we go. Hell of a guy, this John Pike. And there he goes, now trying to move people around. Okay, so I guess that didn't go over well. Finally, an investigation has been completed, and the statement says, consistent with privacy guidelines established in state law and university policy, I can confirm that John Pike's employment with the university ended on July 31st, 2012. The right decision?
Of course.
Now what happens? Does he get hired at another police unit?
Of course.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
That's just what happens. He'll find a job, a security job somewhere.
Pike declined to comment about this. His 2010 salary was listed at $110,243.12. He has been on paid leave since the incident. So, again, I understand the importance of you can't just fire people, you can't stop paying them, you need to do an investigation. But I don't like the message that want months of paid vacation? Casually pepper spray some calmly protesting hippies. I don't like that message. While I understand the logistics of you can't just fire someone based on a YouTube video, you must do a formal investigation. I get that. I still don't like it, though.
Yeah, I don't like it either. And perhaps even still, he was within his what's the word? Jurisdiction, or within his rights to spray those students.
In the broad sense. In other words, he does hold jurisdiction to use his judgment to pepper spray.
Right.
Therefore, you must do an investigation.
But because of public outrage and a video, lost his job.
He might be good for like those Blackwater mercenaries or something.
You know, those guys are usually pretty elite. You know, this guy might have been elite at one point in his life.
He seems a little soggy around the midsection.
Let's say he's lost his edge.
Lewis once casually egged cars driving by his house. He was completely nonchalant about it. It was very shocking.
I think that was your house, and I think you were there too, if I recall correctly.
I don't remember the incident. I have no recollection of the event in question.
All right.
Pedicab drivers in New York are now starting to take some heat because they are tricking tourists and getting them to do some really expensive rides. There's a pedicab driver named Savas Avci who is licensed by the city's Department of Consumer Affairs. It's been confirmed that he is a registered pedicab driver, and he tricked a tourist into paying $442 for a 12-minute ride. Now, how did this happen? Well, you have to have a posted rate, I guess is the law, and you have to confirm the rate in writing or point to something before the ride starts to give the tourist or the rider an opportunity to accept or decline that price. Now, his posted rate was $1 a block. Seems pretty reasonable. You want to go 10 blocks? It's $10. Perfect. Except that he had in very, very small print on his rate card something that says it's a minimum of $100 per person, and he gave 4 people rides. So therefore you had a $400 minimum charge for those 4 people, plus the cost of the blocks, plus taxes. Pretty outrageous.
Yeah, that's pretty hefty.
Apparently this isn't the only guy who is guilty of doing this. There have been a number of these charges that have been alleged. The city does allow pedicab drivers to charge whatever they want, but they have to post the price on the rate card. The thing is, if you have a piece of paper this big with your per block rate, and then in tiny print at the bottom it says, note, minimum $100. Well, is it buyer beware? Is it the responsibility of the buyer to take out a magnifying glass and to look very, very closely? Or do you have to have some reasonable standard here?
Yeah. I mean, is this a dishonest practice, and would it be ruled so in a court?
I don't actually use the pedicabs anyway because it makes me feel guilty. The idea of me sitting there and some guy, particularly in the heat, pedaling around to drive me around. I just don't use them.
Yeah. Well, I just use the subway.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, would you actually, what if this happened to you? Somehow you wanted to go 3 blocks, and then the guy says, well, that's going to be $105.
Number one, I would just never take a pedicab for 3 blocks. I mean, let's come up with a more realistic scenario.
What
I've got to get
let's
across.
say you broke your toe, you can't really walk that well. You have no choice.
Right.
So what would you do?
If I had broken my toe and it was an emergency, then maybe I would say, listen, who am I to turn this down? But why don't I just get into a cab? I don't get.
Damn it, David. This is a hypothetical situation. We're not talking about whether or not you would actually use one. We're saying what happened if you did and you got charged an extremely large fee for it.
So you're saying if a whole number of things happened which are completely unrealistic and unlikely based on my preferences, and I ended up in a situation where I was billed, what would I do?
Yes.
Okay, well, since we're in the realm of fantasy, I wouldn't pay. I'd say I have no money on me. You're going to have to bill me, and then I would fight it. I don't know.
All right. Well, what should these people have done when they were charged $442?
You know, it says tourists. We don't know where the tourists were from. Maybe their English wasn't even very good. Who knows what confusion could have been going on.
And they had this much cash on them?
I think you can use credit cards with the pedicabs.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're advanced.
Huh.
Do you feel guilty with pedicabs, Natan, or are you okay with someone pedaling you around?
Well, it seems to me like a lot of people use the pedicabs so they don't feel guilty about using regular transportation that emits greenhouse gases.
Oh,
But,
okay.
But I personally wouldn't use it just for the same reason as you. It would just be kind of awkward. Like, I might as well just pedal myself and rent a bicycle or something.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a situation in which I would use one.
I want to give you a great book recommendation. I'm going to be bringing one a week to you at this point, Lewis. And actually today, since it's the first one, I'm going to give you 2. The book recommendations, this is great. We've been looking to do this for a while, and we finally found a great sponsor for these. The book recommendations are made possible in part by A Fashion of Bastards, which is Joanna Louise Johnson's best-selling satire involving the bizarre world of Washington's power players and their outrageous misuse of America's precious natural resources. I'm about halfway through the book right now. It's fantastic. You can find it on Amazon.com. Halfway through it, I'll have a fuller report once I've completed the entire book. We'll, of course, not spoil the ending.
Thank you.
Today's recommendation is the book A Crack in Space by Philip K. Dick. I read this about a month ago. This is a great book, Lewis. This book, it's from the 60s, but interestingly enough, it refers to the potential for the first African-American president. And it actually has an African-American presidential candidate. It involves a potential alternate universe, and really there's so many corollaries to what's going on today with the ideas of new technology, not necessarily a gateway to an alternate universe, but the book I find to be incredibly ahead of its time, because of course, I know that the Barack Obama is a Muslim and we're planting his birth certificate theory was well underway in the 60s when Philip K. Dick wrote this book. I just don't know that Philip K. Dick knew about that conspiracy. So it's amazing everything that he was actually able to write in this book and how much it relates to the Obama presidency and so much that's going on today.
Prophetic.
It really is in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't actually know whether this is one of Philip K. Dick's drug-induced books or not. Judging from the readability, I assume not. There was actually a Philip K. Dick book. The only book I ever bought and was not able to get through, I don't remember if it was Valis or a different one. And it's one where I just was not able to get through it. I looked it up after and found out that it was one of his paranoia drug writings. And it was very, very difficult. I just was finding myself completely uninterested in it.
Or perhaps you needed to be in some type of drug-induced trance.
Maybe it is, to
Yeah.
be able to find it remotely interesting. Not the case at all with The Crack in Space. I highly, highly recommend the book. And of course, that made possible in part by A Fashion of Bastards. Find it at Amazon.com. I recommend you read this book, Lewis.
Maybe. Which book?
Well, both. A Fashion of Bastards, but also The Crack in Space.
Well, I'm not a big reader.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, you're more into the movie versions.
Yes.
We'll see. I don't think that there is one, unfortunately.
Not yet.
No. On today's bonus show, a couple of great Olympic-related stories. An Olympian was expelled for eating a pot brownie. Fox News also saying that the Olympic uniforms that the USA team is wearing are not patriotic enough. So we'll talk about that. Get the bonus show at davidpakman.com/membership. We'll take a break. We'll come back and talk about some of the NBC Olympic coverage, which leaves a little bit to be desired, and plenty more. Stay tuned. Big show ahead.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I want to say hello to a David Pakman Show new member of the day, the David Pakman Show membership program, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. There's no escaping it, which is why so many people blame it for every single one of their problems. If you want to find out more about Liberal Bias, visit liberalbias.com. Our member of the day is Ray Larry J. Jr. Ray Larry J. Jr.
LJJ.
RLJJ. RLJ Jr. It's kind of like JFK Jr. or RFK Jr. Well, JFK wasn't Jr., was he? John, yeah, he was.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. Very good. I'm glad we all agree. Yeah, it depends which JFK we're talking about. Obviously, the senior one wasn't Jr.
All right.
We're getting confused. The point is not about those Kennedys. The point is to celebrate Ray Larry J. Jr.'s David Pakman Show membership. Every single member, incredibly important. Thanks to Ray.
Absolutely. Welcome to the family.
Thank you, Lewis. Have you been watching the Olympics, Lewis?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, no, right, the topic, yeah. I thought we were just taking a survey.
Okay.
NBC is doing some really shady stuff with the Olympics, in my opinion. And I knew that this was going to be a problem when they announced that they would basically be airing most stuff on a tape delay. I'm not a fan of the tape delay, Lewis. I must say I like it live. But that being said, let me see if I can set the stage for you here. The U.S. was pitted against Russia among some other teams in a gymnastics competition, okay? Now, NBC didn't air Ksenia Afanasyeva's floor routine, okay? And then it was kind of edited, it was completely edited out. Now, why is that important? Ksenia's floor routine involved a good start to her performance. Then she ended up falling on her knees, and it was pretty tragic. And it made it clear that the U.S. was basically going to go on to win that competition. Now, if you watched it on NBC, you would have had no idea. What did NBC do? Well, in order to increase the perceived drama about the competition between Russia and the American team, they simply didn't show Ksenia's fall, which made it obvious that because the U.S. was going into that last event ahead, they were going to win. I mean, but short of losing points from such a terrible performance, the U.S. was going to win. They didn't really need an incredible performance. What did NBC do? They didn't mention Ksenia's performance, didn't show it, and instead teased the upcoming U.S. performance as, let's see if the U.S. can deliver the knockout blow to Russia here. Now, of course, there was no real drama. This had already happened hours ago. It was already known that when the U.S. started their routine, Ksenia had fallen on her knees, essentially made it so that Russia couldn't win. That was that. NBC deciding instead of airing this actual interesting routine and the fall and the entire thing, creating fake drama to keep people interested and creating a narrative that simply didn't exist. I think that this is BS. I really think that this is not the right way to be airing this. If you're going to not show stuff from other teams, okay. But to create fake drama that doesn't even really exist by excluding stuff, I think that that's really not what NBC was contracted to do here.
It's pathetic and dishonest. Yeah, what's to like about that?
It is straight out dishonest.
Yeah.
You think so?
Of course.
Natan, what do you think about this? Is it just creating an interesting narrative? Is it okay? Is NBC contracted to create the most compelling narrative even if it's fake? Or are they contracted to show what is happening at the Olympics?
I mean, I totally disagree with the idea that it's okay for them to form this narrative. It's like forming a narrative that, I don't know, Obama's going to win re-election by 15 points on the night of the election when in reality he loses or wins by 1 point. It's misleading. People want to see what's really going on. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably find someone who agrees with this and says, yeah, it makes it more exciting. but any reasonable person wants to see what's really happening.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain point, would you rather be excited by something that's fake, or do you want to watch the real Olympics that are going on?
Right.
I would rather see the Olympics exactly as it happens.
Yeah, same here. And it's interesting because Dennis Campbell, when we were talking to him off air last Thursday, he was telling us that the BBC coverage has been fantastic. 24 extra channels have been added so you can watch everything live. He said that his yearly fee, which goes towards the BBC, basically makes it so he can see whatever he wants live. Of course, the timing is a little bit more convenient being in the United Kingdom than being in the U.S. But that being said, I really don't like what's going on here. It's quite disappointing.
It is.
What have you enjoyed the most, by the way?
The gymnastics.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
I actually was fascinated by, I didn't realize that in water polo, you're treading water, I guess the whole time, that the water is deep enough where you're actually treading water the whole time. I had no idea. I just don't know much about water polo.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably all cardio monsters. I mean, that's brutal.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
Also, I thought that the indoor men's volleyball, USA versus Russia was fantastic. I'm, of course, into the soccer. It's an alternative to the World Cup, which we only get every 4 years.
You see, I think Dave actually has no idea what's going on with the soccer. So, like, if I were to ask you, what are the 4 teams remaining in soccer? Could you name them?
No, I've just enjoyed watching the matches.
Right, but you haven't actually seen any of them, right?
Yeah, no, I just don't know what the brackets are. I think what
Right.
I was watching was the group play.
Oh, so like last week,
Yeah.
just the first match.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what one did you watch?
I watched, let's see, I watched Uruguay versus someone. Then I watched, what else did I see? Yeah, it just all blends together. I don't know.
Right.
I just know I enjoy it. I saw Brazil versus, who did Brazil play against? Brazil versus someone.
I
and it
haven't
was
seen
good.
one soccer match.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy watching the soccer. You know, that's what it is.
Right.
I'm not following the results that closely because I know Argentina's not in contention.
Right. Yeah, and the teams aren't that good. They send, I think they can have, all the teams are under 23 in terms of the age of the players.
Right.
Except for 3 that can be over. So the teams that are sent are not really the World Cup caliber teams.
No,
by
it's just
any
nice
stretch.
to see some soccer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, we just had the Euro Cup.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
But Dave didn't watch that.
I didn't watch that.
It was good.
Yeah, I was out of town, I think, for it.
The final was pretty lousy, but, whatever.
I think it was in China that day. NBC is also being criticized for something that I actually don't think is as critique-worthy. There was a bizarre ad timing. Gabby Douglas is this African-American gymnast who won a gold medal for the U.S. gymnastics team. Bob Costas barely finished talking about Gabby Douglas becoming the first African-American woman to win a gold medal in Olympics gymnastics, and then they cut to a commercial for the upcoming show Animal Practice on NBC, which had a monkey doing gymnastics. Now, some people claiming, listen, monkeys and black people, known anti-African-American, prejudicial, racist stereotype, completely inappropriate. Others saying, wait a second, if you're the person who so closely associates monkeys with gymnastics, or rather, monkeys with African Americans, aren't you racist? Let's look at the video and audio coverage from NBC, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go.
That there are some young African American girls out there who tonight are saying to themselves, hey, I'd like to try that too. More from London in a moment.
His entire life has been leading to this moment. All the hard work, the dedication, just to answer the call. The call of victory.
Okay, so there it is, the monkey doing gymnastics. What's your reaction to this? Is NBC worthy of criticism? Because why on earth would you foment a known racist stereotype about black people and monkeys, which we've seen with Barack Obama and we've seen for so long at this point? Or is it people looking for something that really says more about them than it does about anything NBC did? Who wants to go first?
I really doubt the person who decides where to put the commercials and the person who decides what segments are going to go where and what you're going to be talking about corroborated here to make something appear racist or to give like a bad joke.
That's what
This is
NBC said. That
Clearly,
at the time,
clearly an accident.
that the editors of this did not know that that's the commercial that was going to air. I would counter that before Nathan gets to speak by saying, this isn't live. This is tape-delayed stuff, and it's edited together as a pre-produced show. You can find out what commercials are going to air. I don't know, just to make a counterpoint. Nathan, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, is it possible to know whether they intended it to go right after the Bob Costas commentary? Or I mean, do we know?
No, we don't know.
We don't know. I mean, I think if we don't know, then it's kind of useless to talk about this. I mean, the only relevant question is whether it's on purpose or not. What effect does it have on people when they see it?
That's right.
And
My question to that is, if you see a black woman doing gymnastics and then see a monkey doing gymnastics and you link the two together, is that more indicative of your prejudices than it is of anything NBC did? I don't actually know the answer to this one. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're making the connection between the two, and I think you would agree you're not a racist.
I'm making the connection because it was put out there that this is a criticism of NBC.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you were watching,
yeah,
you could have made that connection.
I don't think I
yourself.
would have. I wouldn't. I don't think I would have.
All right.
Made
Well,
that.
many people did.
That's fine.
It's just an apt, analysis of what you know to be an idea that's that everyone knows about the connection between apes and black people.
Right. You're recognizing that the stereotype exists. So therefore, what does that say?
I think everyone does that, but I mean, it's no reflection on the intent of NBC here.
Okay. Fair enough. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this one. DavidPakman.com. Contact us. Before we take a break, Natan came up with this idea to order some of these like chocolate-covered crickets or other bugs that are edible. Now this is the new thing that it's more sustainable, supposedly, than eating a lot of other animal proteins. Natan wants to order some bugs. Lewis said he'd be interested in trying them. I think we should do this on the show. We could order some of these, and would you guys try them on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would, Natan?
Correct.
I don't know if I would. I mean, a chocolate-covered cricket, I don't know. I'm just not sure about it. I'm just not really sure. We found this website, Thailand Unique, which has a bunch of different items. They've got bags of assorted edible bugs for like $5. Maybe we could try that. The chocolate-covered crickets, those are expensive. They're actually like individually wrapped. I wonder if it's almost considered like a bug delicacy of some kind.
I mean, I didn't think crickets were in general, but I mean, when you cover anything in chocolate, the price goes up quite a bit.
It goes up, yeah. There's silkworm pupae covered by chocolate. That sounds delicious, I must say. And also, there's rhino beetles, which are also known as Hiboshima contractum. That sounds delicious. It sounds like it would be good with a nice red wine.
I don't know about that. Beetles, little too hard, I think.
You think so?
A little too crunchy.
Well, maybe they removed the, I don't know.
The exoskeleton?
Maybe they do. Who knows?
I don't know.
Also, we've got Heterometrus spinifer pupae, which we might order, and we could try that. But we'll do it on the show, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm going to participate, but I'll definitely preside over the proceedings.
At the very least, I will eat a chocolate-covered cricket on the show.
You would do that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's get the order placed and let's get this started. Krakatoa Metal Band, Lewis's band, did an album about the brutality of the insect world. You should consider doing an album about the brutality of the edible insect world. That could be a compelling piece of art.
Just not as brutal.
It's not that brutal?
No.
Okay. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with Bill Scher. We'll talk about whether Mitt Romney even really wants to be the president of the United States. Plenty more stuff, a lot still to come. Stay tuned, DavidPakman.com.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. Joining me is Bill Scher, blogger at Campaign for America's Future and liberaloasis.com. Bill, so many questions now rising, including about whether Mitt Romney is sabotaging his own campaign by simply stepping foot in Europe, and so many other questions. But let's start with polling. I'm seeing a lot of electoral vote predictors which are skewing really heavily towards President Obama. And at the same time, we see a number of different national polls where it's much closer, maybe Romney ahead by the margin of error, maybe not. What do you think is more valuable to look at right now?
Well, on one hand, the Electoral College is the end game, and so you would think state by state is more important. But a lot of those online Electoral College predictors will take a state poll that shows a 2-point lead and then just give it to one person and that might give a false sense of certitude when things are still really very close. The national and also state-by-state polling can really vary very heavily in quality. I think, most of your national polls, there are obviously some outliers like Rasmussen, who I don't trust at all. I don't trust the Gallup tracking poll for a couple reasons. One, Huffington Post showed they had a methodological flaw in recent years. And also tracking polls, day-to-day polls are not really designed to give you accurate snapshots. They're designed to give you sense of momentum. So I tend to ignore those and look at some of the big ones like the New York Times and NBC and Pew. And if you look at the national polling, they tend to range from dead heat to Obama plus 10 in the most recent Pew. You don't see big Romney leads in any legitimate national polling. And that, to me, is the biggest indicator that this race leans Obama and has leaned Obama for some time.
Okay, yeah, and we're actually going to have Scott Keeter from Pew Research Center on Wednesday to look at not only what polls we have for this race, but to compare similar polls in early August in previous presidential campaigns. So we're going to get into some of the minutia of that. As far as Mitt Romney and this European gaffe trip, which was just incredible, I've started to get the sense that maybe Mitt Romney doesn't really want to be president. And I know that it's a lot of work to run for president if you don't really want to be president. But my sense is, George Romney, his father, a known politician and kind of drafted in some way, given his kind of moderate perception as a result of being governor of our state of Massachusetts here. Maybe this is not something deep down he really wants to do. And the way that we're seeing that is that the guy just can't keep it together to have a consistent view on any issue. And he goes to Europe and it's just a total disaster. I mean, is there anything to the idea that Romney was pushed into running?
I don't accept that. He's been running for this job for a very long time now. He's basically been running since 2006. And that's a lot of years to put into a project that your heart's not really into. Maybe you do it for like 6 months on a draft, but not for this long a period of time. I do think that he is very unnatural on the stump, and people are going to talk about this in a personal way, that he's not a good candidate, or he's not, or he's socially awkward and that sort of thing. But I think this comes a lot more down to policy positions. He's awkward because he can't deliver a conservative message comfortably because he knows deep down that it's not popular nationally. It's not popular to push tax cuts for the rich. It's not popular to push going back to looser regulations on corporations. Most people don't blame Obama for the economy. They might be frustrated with him for certain things, but you still ask, who do you blame for this? They say Bush and not Obama. That tells you that people remember what got us in this crisis, but Romney is not a bold enough or creative enough person to break away from conservative orthodoxy and communicate a new brand of republicanism to the public, and therefore he is caught between maybe what he thinks makes political sense and what his base demands of him, and that leads to a lot of mistakes and a lot of flip-flopping, a lot of contradictions.
Yeah, I mean, as a politician, of course, Mitt Romney disgusts me, but I have to admit that he's not a stupid guy, and I just don't understand why he's not able to put together a coherent explanation of, okay, this is why my position on X issue appears to have wavered over time. Here's my position now, and here's why you shouldn't be worried about this perceived wavering that I've had. Why can't he just do that? Why can't someone explain to him what to say?
Well, I mean, the wavering comes back to being unable to talk straight to his own party's base. Let me give you an example of what he could do if he had more political freedom.
Yeah.
He might say, you know what, I was in the private sector for a long time. I learned a lot about what makes the economy work, but I also learned that it caused a lot of damage. You know, when jobs move overseas, maybe it's good for investors, but it's bad for some working families. When I joined the public sector as governor, I did things to prevent that, to cushion those blows. I did Romney care. I cared about what happened to people, and I took on the conservative base. He can't make that argument without offending the conservative base. He doesn't trust that they'll be with them regardless because they might go third party or stay home. But that would be a way to meld his private sector and public sector experience. He refuses to do that, and therefore he's left sounding very awkward and very superficial because he can't go deep in any policy area.
Yeah, I mean, of course, mentioning Romney care in any kind of positive light is a complete taboo subject at this point for Mitt Romney. You know, speaking of the private sector experience, I had Babe Buchanan on, I think it was, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her a couple of times, what evidence do we have, she's advising Romney, what evidence do we have that being a private sector guy and a good business person would lead to being a good president? You know, who can we point to? And she wanted to deflect and say, well, what we know is that Obama didn't have that experience and he's bad. And that's Babe Buchanan, a Romney advisor. I'm not hearing them being able to make the argument, the connection between he's a private sector success and therefore will be a good president. In other words, they repeat it. But when you get into the logic of why that would be, I haven't heard a compelling argument. Is there anyone making a compelling case?
Well, no, their campaign strategy is keep all the focus on Obama. If people don't hate Obama and aren't ready to fire Obama, then what's the point? They'll never switch horses in midstream otherwise. There's a certain degree of logic to that, but it bumps up against the fact that, one, like I said, people don't blame Obama for the economy. Even if there's a degree of frustration with them, they accept that he was dealt with an extremely bad hand coming in, and it's going to take some time to get out of the ditch that we're in. And so if he doesn't have a positive case to make for himself, he's caught hoping that people will turn on Obama in a pronounced degree in a matter of weeks, when that hasn't happened yet. So that's a lot of eggs to put in one basket, and it does question whether they have way too narrow a strategy to actually pull this off in 10 weeks.
Last thing I want to touch on in the little time we have left is a vice presidential pick. Weeks ago, there was a rumor that we might hear within days. That didn't happen. What do you think the timing is most likely at this point, and who do you think is running at the head of that race?
Timing is a bit of a, obviously there's only so many days left before the convention. It's really a question of, do they do it, this week during the Olympics because they want to have a guy on the hustings earlier, or they go closer to the convention, have more drama around the convention, and that I can't be a mind reader there. What I am interested in looking at is, does he pick someone closer to his own personal brand? No frills, button down, which would be a Rob Portman or a Tim Pawlenty type, maybe a Bobby Jindal. And that's what most of the speculation has been. But in recent days, you're seeing this grassroots push for Paul Ryan.
Oh, boy.
And saying, you need someone who's going to be a game changer, who's going to really take it to Obama on debt issues and fiscal issues, and that means a bold embrace of the Ryan House Republican budget, which effectively ends Medicare as we know it. And if Romney does that, that tells you a couple things. One, he feels he's in a weak position and has to throw a long ball to be a quote-unquote game changer, which was the McCain logic for picking Palin, and you see how that worked out. Going against his gut to listen to the squeakier wheels in his base. And I'll tell you something, someone else who did that. John Kerry did that with John Edwards. John Kerry wanted to pick Dick Gephardt, not a flashy guy, not great on the stump, but he might have brought in Missouri, and if he brought in Missouri, he would have won the race. But he listened to some of the people in the party base who really don't have a great sense of things. People in the base don't know what they're talking about. They assumed that John Edwards would be this game-changing pick, bring in the South, bring in white working class, and he was a total bust in 2004. Romney might make that same mistake, maybe tenfold, if he picks Paul Ryan.
All right, well, I hope he goes with Ed Brendel's suggestion of Michelle Bachmann, but I think I can't hold my breath. Bill Scher, Campaign for America's Future, liberaloasis.com. Thanks as always, Bill. We'll take a break and be back with more after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The best way to support the show is by becoming a David Pakman Show member. Go to davidpakman.com/membership and sign up today. The Mars rover Curiosity has landed safely on Mars. It is incredible. I considered actually staying up late last night to watch this happen. I think it was happening at like 1 a.m. Eastern time. but then it ended up happening at 1:14 a.m. Eastern Time, and because of the 14-minute signal transmission time all the way from Mars, we didn't find out about it locally, I guess, until about 1:28 a.m. So I'm glad I didn't stay up. It made more sense just to check it out this morning, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's take a look at a little bit of the video from the NASA control room, I guess this is. People very, very excited about this, and it is pretty cool, I must say.
Radar. Altitude of 8 confirmed. We're safe on Mars. Time to see where our curiosity will take us.
Okay, there you go. So this is pretty interesting stuff. I mean, now we will be able to do a lot more exploration on Mars. About 70% of previous missions to Mars ended in failure. So just getting this thing down safely is kind of a big deal all by itself.
Yeah, and a very expensive deal.
Yes. Well,
But-
let's talk about that. $2.5 billion mission, which came in $900 million over budget. Of course, we hear people saying, oh, it's so expensive. Look at what we're doing here. This is a waste of money. I completely disagree. I completely disagree with that. Number one, we're talking about expanding human knowledge and experience here. Number two, this didn't just happen where you put down a pile of money and we have this, right? I mean, we put money into jobs, people working in the aerospace industry, developing new technologies, discoveries by NASA that were in part connected to other jobs. We're talking about the work of hundreds or probably even thousands of Americans here in dozens of companies in a number of different industries across the entire country. This to me actually does seem like stimulative spending.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, when you're spending money on advancement of human knowledge and space exploration, even though sometimes things result in failure, well, that's how you learn. And I never think it's a waste of money. I mean, I think defense spending is a waste of money. And how much are we spending on that? $2.5 billion is like nothing compared to what we're spending on defense.
It's probably it's a rounding error when you talk about the defense budget.
Right, right.
Bill
or
O'Reilly,
you don't include the defense budget.
Yeah,
You don't even include it. Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly and Donald Trump together at a Yankees baseball game at Yankee Stadium. I know it sounds weird. It's nothing compared to Donald Trump and Bill O'Reilly joining in the wave as it comes around Yankee Stadium as they watch the game. Let's get to the video of this. This is incredible. Their reactions are absolutely perfect. Trump watches everybody having fun and then does like a terrible version of the wave about 5 seconds after it's already passed. Bill O'Reilly keeps time with the wave, but he only does it with his index finger as opposed to both of his full arms and hands. So let's take a look at this. This is incredible. They're just, imagine what it's like sitting next to these guys at a baseball game. Very, very weird stuff. Let's take a look here, Lewis. Let's see if we can get that, that video going. Are we ready? Yes, we are. Here we go. Here comes the wave.
Donald Trump takes part in the wave.
Bill O'Reilly with his finger, and then after it's gone, Donald Trump with his arms up and kind of looking around, trying to be part of the fun, of course. Let's take one more look at it, Lewis, because I think it is worth looking at twice. The wave starts coming around. These guys. What fun. What fun. Here comes the wave. There it is, Bill O'Reilly. One pointer finger looking very bored, then Donald Trump puts his arms up and keeps them up, looks around confused, and apparently the entire crowd finding it a little bit strange.
As with everything in Donald Trump's life, he is completely clueless.
The wave is dumb. I can't stand the wave. I have to be
terrible.
honest. It is terrible.
Yeah.
But if you're going to participate, do it in a way that you don't end up looking ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, why just put your finger up? Clearly you don't want to participate, so don't participate.
Donald Trump looks like he would be the guy in the movie theater who yells out the answer to those trivia questions that they put up on the screen before the movie. And he's wrong about the answer, but he thinks that it's the theater chain that has made a huge mistake with the trivia questions. And then afterwards he would write a letter.
Sounds like a Trump move to me.
Once I made a huge mistake. I was doing the clap and stomp "We Will Rock You" thing, but I was doing it out of sequence. Really, it was out of sequence because I was in a movie theater. It wasn't a sporting event. So I just had no idea what was going on.
Terrible.
That's it for today. We'll be back with a new show tomorrow. Please join us on the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. Otherwise, see you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.